Hey there, and welcome to today's webinar, Tips to Bringing Nature into Your Indoor Learning Space. And today I'm really excited to be sharing my top 5 favorite ways to bring nature into the indoors. That could be into your home, into your classroom, into your child's learning space, wherever that may be. So I'm really excited to be sharing that with you. So we're going to just go ahead and dive right in. A few housekeeping tips before we get started to make sure that we get the most of our time together today. First of all is to shut down any distractions that you are able to, like Facebook or Instagram, or maybe mute your phone if you can. Obviously, if you are with your children right now, of course you can't shut them down. You might even hear mine come running in at some point, but we can get the most out of our chat today and our webinar today if you are able to turn off as many distractions as possible. And then the next thing I would recommend is grabbing a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil to take some notes. This will be recorded and you'll get a replay that you can access for 24 hours. However, if we write down things that come to our minds right away, I'll be showing you some photos and things today and some, fast action tips. And if you write those down, it's more likely that you'll take action on them later, as opposed to just sort of, thinking, oh, that's a really good idea, and kind of logging it away and then forgetting about it. So write those things down that come to you, that strike you right away, and you'll definitely get more out of today. And then next is to engage with us in the chat box. So you should be able to access a chat window on the upper left-hand side of your screen. There should be a little bubble there where you can access the chat. And we'll be in there. You should be, if there's others in here chatting along with you. I'll pop in and answer questions when I can. We will do a Q&A at the end. Excuse me, but definitely join us in the chat over there and introduce yourself, say hi, and all that. And then lastly, definitely stick around until the end. I have something special I want to share with you. I'm going to do a Q&A at the end so you can get some one-on-one time with me there as well. So please stick around the whole way through and we can go ahead and delve right in then. So before we start, I want to hear from you. So tell me, just using the chat box over there, how do you feel about your child's current indoor learning space? Now you can just kind of give me that on a scale of 1 to 10, with the 1 being, maybe you don't even have anything set up, 10 being, it's absolutely perfect. I don't think there's anything I could possibly want to change. So go ahead and just type a number there into the chat box. How are you feeling right now on a scale of 1 to 10 about your indoor space? Okay, 7. Lisa says 5, a couple 3s, okay. So most of you are around like a 6 or a 7. Okay, so are there any elements of nature in your learning space right now? So when you think about your learning space that you have set up for your child or your children in your classroom, are there any elements of nature that you see right now? And if so, go ahead and tell me there in the chat box. Okay, so Karen says, not really, that's why I put 5 for the first question. Okay, so Karen, you're happy with your learning space except for the fact that you want to add more nature. Okay, great, well then you are here in the right place today. So I'm gonna ask you, do you have a window in your learning space? Because if you do, you already have nature in there. So you already have, the first thing I'm gonna talk about today is natural sunlight. So you should already have something in there. You might just be looking in the wrong places, but I'm going to definitely give you some more tips on how you can add more of that. Okay, and then lastly, would you like to learn more ways to include nature in your child's everyday experiences? What do you think? Yes or no in the chat box there. Yes, yes, heck yes, lots of yeses. Awesome. All right, so that is what we are going to do. So I'm going to give you 3 reasons this webinar might be just for you today. So the first one, you have a playroom or a space set up for your child already, but they aren't spending much time in it learning or exploring. So if you are the person who feels like they're always saying, you have 1,000 things to do in your playroom, why aren't you in there playing? Then this webinar is for you. You're going to find out perhaps why they might not be spending so much time in there, and overwhelm can be a reason for that. The second reason this webinar might be for you is if you are passionate about getting your child to engage with nature, but you're not quite sure how to do that without being outside. So obviously, if we want to, we want our kids to spend more time in nature, we take them outdoors. But when you think about maybe bringing nature to the inside, that kind of might freak you out a little bit. You might be worried about a mess or, creatures or critters, or you just aren't really sure how to do that. And the last reason this webinar might be for you is if you're happy with your indoor learning space already, but maybe you want to incorporate more natural elements into the area. And I think Karen was the one who said that she put a 5 for that first question because she wants to include more nature into her learning space. So if you fit into any one of those categories, then definitely grab that pen and paper and join me today, because you should get a lot out of this. So why do we want to bring nature inside? So we know that there are so many amazing benefits for our children when they spend time engaging with nature and natural elements. We also know that you can't always be outside. Sometimes it's raining or snowing, or it's just way too hot, or you can't step away from what you're doing at the moment. So there's lots of times when we can't be outside. So if we can bring those natural elements into our homes and into our classrooms and into our learning spaces, then we give our children the opportunity to still get those amazing benefits of engaging with nature, but we don't have to have them outside all the time. Obviously, being outside is great, but it's really great to be able to bring that to the inside as well. And then the next question would be how? How do we bring the nature and the outdoors into our learning spaces? So it can definitely seem like a challenge at first if this is something totally new to you. A lot of the people that I work with, they start out with just a room full of plastic toys, where their house kind of looks like a Toys R Us. Sorry, you can hear some fire trucks outside there. But really, it just takes a few simple changes to what you already have set up, and you can make all the difference to the natural feeling of a space. And you really shouldn't have to spend a lot of money or a lot of time even really working on these projects. So after today, I'm going to challenge you really to look at the space you already have and try to see what you can change just with what you already have there. And I bet you'll be amazed at what you can create just with a few simple tweaks, removing a few of those more plastic and non-natural toys, and then replacing a few things. And the great thing about nature is that for the most part, it's free. So it shouldn't be too difficult to make some of these changes. So I want to start out by introducing myself. I see lots of new names and faces in the chat box and in the attendees list there. So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Leah McDermott. I am a mom, first of all. That's me in the photos there with my family, and my sons, Charlie, who's 4, and Desmond is 17 months. I'm a former teacher, and I've dedicated my time to helping parents and caregivers and families provide enriching and meaningful learning experiences for their children through nature. And most of the people that I work with are full-time homeschoolers, but I'm actually having a growing number of people joining me from childcare facilities and even teachers in public schools who are wanting to find ways to engage their children that they have during the day in nature. So we're really, I work with a really inclusive bunch, because nature is for everybody. Everybody benefits. All children benefit from being outdoors, not just children who are homeschooled. So that's what I do. My journey to where I am now began many years ago, before I was a mom, when I was teaching in an urban public school. I actually grew up as a homeschooled child, and learning has always been a passion of mine. So as soon as it was time for me to choose a career, I went into teaching. I got dual certified. I got 2 master's degrees in education, and I went right into the public schools, sort of ready to change the world. But I became pretty quickly disheartened when I noticed how much the automation of the classroom was happening, and that it became really hard to individualize the learning experience for my children, which was a big passion of mine, is individualized learning. And as the class sizes got bigger every year, that became more of a challenge. And simultaneously, the push from the administration to make things sort of across the board for learning became more of a challenge for me. So after I had my oldest son in 2011, I decided not to return to the classroom. And then the next year in 2012, I really began longing for ways to kind of share my knowledge and passions for learning again for others. So I started a natural living blog where I shared my family's journey towards going green and green living. And then it kind of naturally progressed into sharing activities that I was doing with my son as he got a little bit older. And those really resonated with my followers. And I had more and more people asking me to please share more of these activities that I was doing with him. And I also opened an Etsy shop where I shared some of my handmade toys and eco-friendly toys, and that kind of grew along with all of the activities that I was sharing with him. And then after I had my second son last spring, at that point Charlie was 3 or almost 3, and he was really starting to do a lot of these activities daily, these structured activities that I was setting up for him. And again, I kept having people ask me over and over, please share more of this. So I combined a lot of the activities that I had done with him, and I put together a full program, which I'll talk about at the end. So definitely stick around so you can hear a little more about that as well. But one of the other things I really decided that I wanted to do was start a community of like-minded families who all wanted to come together and share these passions. I knew that, my followers were not the only ones with these questions that wanted this information, and I knew that I wasn't the only one that had the information to share. So I wanted to bring all of these people together where we could all be in the same place and share our ideas. So I started a Facebook group, and it's the Nature Inspired Learning Group on Facebook, and you can definitely come and join us. I highly recommend it. It's a fantastic group of people, and I'm going to type that link into the chat box for you there so you can come and just grab that right away. You can visit bit.ly/nature group. The link is there in the chat box for you, or if you just search in Facebook for Nature Inspired Learning Group, you'll find us there. So it's a private group. You have to request to join, but I'll definitely go over after the webinar and let you in. We have over 1,500 members, almost 1,600 members in there now. It's a thriving community of people all sharing and supporting. It's a wonderful group. So definitely please come and join us over there. So I want to delve right into the content today because I don't want to take up too much of your time. So I'm going to give you 5 big tips for bringing nature into your indoor learning space. So the first one, again, write these down. Anything that jumps into your head that you can change, write them down so that you're definitely going to make those changes as soon as the webinar is over. So the first one is utilizing your natural light. So the amount of natural light in a space can make all the difference in the feel of it, as well as the benefits that your child gets from it. So if you think about decorating a space in your home, adding more natural light or letting in more natural light brightens up the space. It makes you feel better. It just gives the whole space a new look, right? And it's the same way for your child's learning space. Opening up those windows, letting that natural light shine in and getting as much of it into the room as you can will make all the difference in the way that your child engages with what they're playing with and what they're learning with. It gets rid of that harsher overhead lighting that can actually cause problems for the way that a child is learning. So definitely getting in that natural light. And one of my big tips for doing that, no matter what kind of, what size window you have, how little light actually shines through, a good tip there is using mirrors, because mirrors will reflect that natural light all around the room, and it'll make you feel like there's more light in the room than there actually is. So hanging mirrors of all different shapes and sizes around the room, especially down at your child's eye level, will definitely help with that. And one thing I recommend is you really want to have it directly across from whatever window is bringing in the most light. So, the more mirrors you can gather, the more you can put around the room. But to start, get one immediately across from that window, because that'll bounce that natural light right across. And as you can see in this picture here, this is one of my favorite blogs, and everydaystory.com. You can see she put right on the back of the table there, actually. You can see in the mirror there, you can see it's directly across from the window, so it's reflecting that natural light right off the mirror there onto the space where the child is working. So all they did was just prop that mirror right along the back of that table. I actually like to put mirrors directly on the table and have my child build on top of them and work on top of them, because it creates a whole new layer of experience for them. So you can really utilize these mirrors in all kinds of different ways. And this is the one area where you might have to spend some money. However, I definitely recommend checking out thrift stores and yard sales and Craigslist, because those are places where you can find mirrors really cheap, and you won't have to go out, you don't have to go out and buy brand new mirrors for something like this. So, just keep an eye out. This isn't something that you have to gather all at once. Gather it in pieces. Just, that's the first thing I look for when I go to a thrift store or a yard sale is, nice mirrors that I can use, excuse me, in our learning space. So that's one tip. And then along with that, If your incoming light is limited by small windows or few windows, or maybe they're facing the wrong side or facing some trees and you don't get a lot in, there's a few tips you can use to get as much light from those windows as possible. So the first thing would be using those mirrors like I recommended, and then also getting everything off of the windows. Take down the blinds, take down the curtains, unless they're absolutely necessary, which the only instance I can really think of is if your learning space is shared with a sleeping space. So if it's like in your child's bedroom and you need the shutters or something to block out nighttime or block out light for nighttime, that's the only reason I can think of that you would have to have treatments on there. So, you don't need window treatments. Open those spaces up and let as much natural light in as possible. As you can see, they did in this photo here that I shared. They don't have a lot of natural light coming through those windows because of where it's placed. So they took off all the curtains, and that helps right away to let in as much light as they possibly can. Now, the benefits that your child is going to get from having that natural light inside the space is it provides a nice, healthy, and calm learning environment. It helps to get rid of that harsh, false lighting. The overhead lights, I definitely recommend never using the overhead lights. If you have to bring in some false lighting, use lamps. And put them at a level where the light bulbs are not going to shine directly into your child's line of vision. So wherever they will be working by those lamps, put them so that the lampshade, the bottom of the lampshade is like right at their eye level so that they're not getting that harsh light directly on them. This is the one instance where I will say, this is the one instance that I'll talk about today where they will not be getting like direct health benefits from the light. And this is only because vitamin D is only absorbed when it's direct sunlight onto the skin. So even if your child has the exposure to the natural light from the inside, they're not getting the vitamin benefits specifically. So I don't want to confuse anybody on that point. I want to make that clear that you have to actually be outside to get the vitamin D absorption into the skin. But the benefits for like the learning centers of the brain is definitely still there when you bring the natural light into the classroom or the learning space. Okay, the second tip is going to be incorporating plant life. And this is a really easy thing to do, and it's very inexpensive. So, and you do get those immediate health benefits just like they would in the outdoors, as opposed to the way it is with the natural light having to have the direct sunlight on the skin. This is different because your child will actually have access to the plants. So having daily exposure to green plant life, there's been so many amazing research studies done about the physical and mental and emotional benefits of having daily interaction with green plants for children and adults as well, actually. So having as many of those as you can in your child's space is a great way to bring the nature indoors. And then, so what I really recommend doing here is if you have any empty space, once you've kind of filled up your learning space and you walk in and you look around, any empty space, fill it with a plant, something that is living, something that'll help clean the oxygen or clean the air, put more oxygen in the air, and just it adds a whole new level of excuse me, nature to that space. So one way you can do that is having your child keep a small indoor garden. So if you have a window in that learning space, putting just a few small pots or pots or recycled containers for planting herbs or easy to grow flowers. Give your child something that they have control over growing is a great way to let your child interact there. It's a great little science experiment for any age. Succulents are something that I recommend because they're super easy to care for. Like, you can go weeks without watering these things. They never die. So definitely put some of those in if you're worried about maybe forgetting about them. That's one thing you can do. And they also create a nice kind of zen feel. And another thing I recommend is keeping a vase of real flowers on the table where your child works. And that isn't really something that we think about in a child's learning space. We might think about putting that on our kitchen island or our dining room table, but that's something that you can include right there in your child's space as well. And you'd be surprised at what it can spark in their imaginative play or for art inspiration. So that's something that you can do right along with your child. Let them go with you once a week and pick a couple of wildflowers or something from the garden and put those right there in your child's space. Is a great way to bring in that natural plant life as well. And then vary the size of the plants that you have so that at different levels in the room. And this photo that I shared here is a wonderful example of that. So you can see that there's the bamboo sticks just attached to the wall there. So that's not necessarily a living plant, but you still get that feeling of, you know, the natural element. You can see right to the right of those bamboo plants there, you see the succulent that's suspended in glass, which creates a really awesome element there, and it's right at the child's line of vision. Then they have a plant kind of up top, that spider plant that's sort of growing down. And then down low on the far right side of the photo, you see that little bonsai tree there. So they've got lots of different plants just in that one tiny space at all kinds of levels for the child to see. And that's just a great example there of how to bring plant life into a learning space. So we're going to take a little quick pause there to slow down. I know I'm talking fast, but I want to get as much info crammed into this hour for you as I can. So hopefully you're getting some new inspiration for your learning space already. So those were the first couple of tips. And we're going to get right into the next one, which is natural loose parts. And this is my personal favorite way, or maybe my second. I don't know, they're all pretty great, but this is one of my favorite ways of bringing nature inside. So when you're thinking about filling, you know, once you've kind of put the basics into your learning space, and now you're thinking about bringing in the elements that your child's actually going to be interacting with. So when you're thinking about filling those shelves or those baskets with loose parts like blocks and, you know, toys and puzzles and things, try thinking outside the box a little bit and determine where you can remove some of those plastic toys or some of those man-made things and replace it with something from nature. So you can see in this photo, wonderful, wonderful example here that I pulled from one of my Facebook groups. This is a tray full of a crazy mix of things that an adult would never really think to do something with, but to a child, there's so much imagination sparked in this space here. So they've got those natural elements, the pine cones, the tree rings, they've got the seashells there, but then they also added a good mix of man-made items as well, and a really strange mix. They've got the nuts and bolts down there, some dried pasta, some stickers, and I love, love, love that they put those pieces of computer parts there because what a fantastic mix of objects for a child to learn and create with. So really thinking along the lines of what kind of flexible materials you can add in to allow your child to create as much open-ended play as possible is a really great way to do this and bring in those natural loose parts. So some more practical ideas, maybe thinking about bringing in a basket of rocks or small tree rounds like you see in that photo there, and place those in the block building area. So mix those up together. So your child now has blocks, and even better to put a mirror right behind the building space. So then you've got that natural light, you've got a whole new element of things that are, you know, your child can see both sides of what they're creating, or maybe even a mirror underneath too. And then they've got rocks and tree rounds and maybe a plant nearby that they can build. So think about, you know, where you might right now have just a basket of blocks. Think of what you can add in from nature to make that whole new creative space for your child. And then this is a great opportunity to bring in seasonal items to help with, you know, maybe some themed study or for your child to connect with what's going on outside at the moment. So maybe you've got, you know, autumn leaves or pine cones or flowers or acorns and things that you can kind of leave out to explore the seasons. And some other examples here, you can see on this photo, they added, you know, they've got the twigs and gems and seashells and pine cones, and I love the dried fruit that they put there. So when you introduce these natural loose parts to a play space, you're allowing your child flexibility to explore and create with something completely new, and it kind of removes that preconceived notion of what a toy is supposed to do. You know, like for, you know, just Legos, they're supposed to build something. You know, those, you know, obviously there's specific things that a child can build with Legos, and they can be creative as well, but in your child's mind, that they do one thing, you know. So when you bring in those natural loose parts, it kind of opens a whole new world of creativity for them. So really start thinking right now about some of those plastic things you have that maybe you can replace or add to when you bring in some natural elements. Okay, the fourth tip is going to be using nature as decor. So now you've brought in, you know, those health benefits, you've got the natural light, you've got the plant life, so you're, you know, creating like an ambiance. And then you've got, you know, the natural loose parts that your child's actually going to be manipulating and engaging with. And now you can think about using nature to decorate. So you're kind of getting out of that, you know, generic wall art and themed mindset, and think about ways that you can use nature as decoration. And I love this photo here because they used the recycled water bottles and tinted them to be, or tinted the water to be, you know, all the colors of a spectrum. And they placed those right in the windowsill where the sun is going to reflect, or the natural light there is going to reflect right through them. So think about, and they have that right at the, you know, on the, that'll all shine right there on the floor where the children are working with their natural loose parts. So just imagine what that looks like in the morning when the sun shines through those bottles and creates a spectrum or a rainbow and prism on the floor. What a fun and amazing place that would be to create with those natural loose parts. So something super simple, just some upcycled, you know, recycled Voss water bottles, fill them with some colored water, and you create, you know, you're using nature to decorate and create a whole new world of imagination for your child. And then one of my favorite ways to use nature to decorate, and this is a very common thing that you see in Reggio Emilia inspired classrooms and learning spaces, is to suspend a tree branch. And typically this is done, they hang it from the ceiling. They use a large fallen tree branch, hang it from the ceiling, and then they have the children decorate that. You know, they might yarn bomb it, or, you know, the children will hang, you know, their favorite art pieces from it. I really love this photo. They put it directly on the wall, and then they hung metal kitchen instruments from it. So this was actually used as like a musical center. So that was a really creative way. You know, they could have just hung those instruments from a pole or a curtain rod, but using nature like that adds a whole new element. So I really love that as well. And then the last tip is going to be using a nature table. And if you're in a smaller space like an apartment, or you don't have a whole table that you can dedicate to this, you can use a nature tray. You know, that can be more portable for your child to use in this space that they have. So, and this is going to be a place where your child can collect an assortment of natural items that when they go outside, and they can gather those things, and they have a space that they can bring them to investigate and explore and kind of extend their discoveries from outside on the inside, or, you know, when they come back indoors. And it kind of extends that learning and investigation phase past the structured activities. And in this photo, I really love, this is somebody from my, the private Facebook group that I linked you to already in the beginning. These are some of the photos that we share in there. So definitely come join us. Again, there's just another push for that group because it's a really fantastic place. But you can see here in this photo, she was actually at the time studying from the bugs theme of the program that I mentioned that I developed. But you can see this place where they were able to bring their nature indoors. It's just a small table where the child can sit and work and investigate and explore. She's got the bug cards strung up there for inspiration. You know, it's just very simple. Some natural elements, plant life. They've got a bug catcher there for the, you know, for your child to look at and investigate as they're learning. So this is a really great place for your child to have control over what they're doing. And I really recommend allowing that to be your child's free space. So this, you know, other than you adding some elements that they can investigate with, like in this photo, you see they added a mortar and pestle and, you know, magnifying glass and some plates and platters for the child to kind of sort and take things apart and investigate. Really, this should be a space that your child has free reign over, to allow them that control over their learning. I do recommend maybe setting some ground rules. I found out the hard way that I had to do this. So one of my rules specifically for the nature table is no living creatures are allowed on the nature table unless we've talked about it already. But really, this is a great place for your child to feel it's special and important to them. They can arrange and explore and create with the pieces they've gathered. And this photo is a great example of that. And I really love the mortar and pestle that they added in this photo specifically to allow the child the opportunity to take apart and, you know, deconstruct the nature elements that they bring in, because there's really no better way to learn how something goes together than to take it apart. And that's a great way for a child to experience nature if they have the opportunity to deconstruct the nature that they're experimenting with. And I'm going to say, if you do only one thing after reading my post here and watching this webinar, set up a nature table indoors. If there's only one thing you walk away with today, let it be that. So where do you start? So you can start simple, again, really easy. Hopefully you've gotten some inspiration from these top 5 tips that you can just run over right now and make one simple change. Set up a nature table, give your child a space to keep some pine cones and rocks, bring a basket of rocks in, hang up a mirror. You start without spending a dime. I'm going to challenge you to try not to spend any money on this project up front. And really it's all about just taking a new look at your space and seeing where you can add some of these natural elements. So now I'm going to challenge you here. Would you like to know how to create hundreds of meaningful, engaging, nature-based learning experiences with this new nature-rich learning environment that you've already set up? So the program that I mentioned at the beginning is A Child's World, and this is the nature-inspired program that I've created. And I want to talk to you about that now and spend a few minutes talking about that and sharing that with you. So back in April, when I had all these parents asking me to compile all of the activities that I was doing with my son into one thing for them to utilize as well, I put this together, I put it out there, and I got amazing, incredible feedback about it. So I took all of that feedback and I changed it up and I re-released it September 1st. And now I have that available for everybody. So with this program, you get 20 themes and they're all centered around nature. So those themes are like the 4 seasons, bugs, birds, space, light, colors in nature. We've got Arctic animals, rainforest animals, ocean life, just, you know, the whole spectrum of things that your child could show an interest in nature. There's a theme for each of those, 20 of those. And then inside each of those themes is 25 activities that are all centered around those themes, but they're open-ended, they're child-friendly, they're allowing, I set all of these up to be, they're structured activities that you set up for your child, but they are open-ended enough that your child can explore on their own based on their level and their interests. So, you know, this kind of basically what I wanted is to be able to take all of the work away from your shoulders and give you something that you can access right away to follow your child's interest, to follow their leads, and to give them an opportunity to engage with nature that they kind of inherently love. So you don't have to go to Pinterest, you don't have to go to Google, you don't have to compile lesson plans. Everything is right here and done for you to be able to just pull right away and go with the flow of what your child is interested in doing. And most of the resources that you would need are already in your home. If you have a kitchen and a basic art supply center, you probably won't need very many things at all other than this program. And that was my goal, to create that for you. So inside each of the themes, again, you get 25 different activities or more or less, depending on how advanced some of them are. But you get nature exploration. So I give you some tips on how to approach the nature that's already around where you live and approach that from the ideas of the theme that you're learning. Art activities, math extensions, so kind of subtly using nature and natural elements from the theme-based ideas to introduce some very basic math concepts. So it's like sneaky math. Your child doesn't even know they're doing that kind of learning, but they're just engaging with nature and building blocks and setting the building blocks for those math extensions, those math concepts later on. I include sensory play, which is a wonderful thing to be using in an outdoor learning space. Science experiments, so a lot of that like nature table deconstruction that I mentioned before, that's where you can do a lot of these science experiments. I have themed book lists, so I give you my top 10 favorite books centered on the theme. You can go get those at your local library, or order them online if you want to add them to your private collection. I include a literature focus lesson. One of my passions is early literacy skills and building those blocks of early literacy by reading to your child. And so I give you some tips on how to maybe ask specific questions or ways to engage your child during reading that aren't like a reading lesson. It's just you reading to your child, but it's centered, it's set up in a way that you're building those early literacy blocks. And then I also include at the end of every theme a kid-friendly recipe. Because another one of my passions is getting kids to eat healthy and being engaged with their food. There's research that shows that if a young child is, has a hand in growing their food or, cooking their own healthy meals, they actually will develop healthy eating habits that last for the rest of their lives. So that's a big undertaking and a really simple change that parents can make to sort of build those healthy habits for the rest of your child's life. So I include a kid-friendly themed recipe at the end of each of those themes. So you get 20 of those along with the themes as well. And the themes don't build on one another. There's no particular order that they have to be taught in. So you can totally go based on your interests or your seasons in your region or your child's interests at the time. You get lifetime access. So you'll get a link right away where you can download this and you can print it out if it works better for you to have it on paper, or you can open it up and save it to your computer. But you'll also have access to it via a cloud device. So you could pull it up on your phone, you can pull it up on your iPad, pull it up on your computer. You don't have to take up space. You can pull it right up online via that cloud at any moment. And so overall, it ends up being over 500 activities here. So you get more than enough for a year or more. You could do one activity every single day for a year and a half. Basically, there's so much packed into this. And the way that I structure it is I actually did most of these activities with my son over a period of 2.5 years when he was like 2 and 3 years old. And now that he's 4, I'm actually going back over and teaching it again to him sort of in a little bit more of a structured way now that he's old enough to comprehend it that way. But he's getting, so he's already done all of these activities, but they're open-ended and structured so that he could get what he needed to out of that activity at the time. So now that he's 4, he's coming back to these activities again and learning a whole new set of things from these activities because it's really set up so that he can bring his own prior knowledge to the activity and get all kinds of new information out of it. And then you also get I put together an instructional guide. It's like a 10-page guide that comes with the beginning of the program. It just has all kinds of good info that I packed into that. So info on setting up a learning space, a lot of what we went over today, making a plan for using this, a daily plan. I have like a sample year-long calendar. I give you some research information about the benefits of nature and engaging with nature, some safety tips in nature, and all kinds of other things packed into that intro guide there as well. So that was what you get. So here is what you will create when you have this program. So you will create a sense of wonder and excitement in your child for their world around them. All children are born with an innate curiosity about their world. And so when you have a program like this, where you have all of those activities right there, ready for you to use and explore with your child, you get to help build that sense of wonder and excitement for your children. You get over 500 unique exploratory activities, like I mentioned. And you also get to create a tailored learning experience for your child designed around their individual interests. Because, like I mentioned, these themes don't build on one another. They all stand independently. So when your child shows interest in something all of a sudden, you have the opportunity right there to pull this up. If your child all of a sudden sees a butterfly and wants to learn about butterflies, you can go boom, right to the bugs unit. You open that up, or the bugs theme. You open that up and you have a plethora of book recommendations and activities and a recipe that you can use right there to set something up based on your child's learning experience. You don't have to go to Pinterest and say, oh no, my child wants to learn about butterflies, now I have to find all these things for them. It's all done for you. That was my goal here, to have all of that hard work and that legwork done for you so that you can focus on engaging with your child. And then you get to set up and create engaging nature explorations, super fun and messy art activities and sensory play, really exciting science experiments, cooking fun, joyful reading experiences, and you get that secret math understanding from those math extensions with nature. So I wanted to give you a little peek inside here. So these are some pages pulled from the Rocks theme. And on the far left, you see there's the recommended book list there. That's kind of how I structure that. I give you my favorite books for the theme, and then I give you that little literature lesson at the bottom. The center photo there is nature exploration. So that's an example of some of the ways that you can utilize the nature that's already around your home and your neighborhood, your city, wherever, to kind of talk about the theme in your own and how it relates, basically how that theme relates to your child's personal world. And then on the far right there, you see the science experiments. Super, super detailed ways. I give you, all the information and the ingredients and stuff that you need to create those experiments for your child. So that's kind of what it looks like on the inside. So if you order, you also get all of these bonuses that I want to share with you. So the first thing that you get, which is worth the whole program in and of itself, is the private Facebook group. And this is separate from the group I already shared with you. This is a totally private, members-only group where everybody in here has purchased the curriculum. They're using it together. And this is a fantastic place where we are sharing every day. There's pictures being shared of how people are using it. I have separate file documents in there that are separate from the program themselves that have like supply lists for each of the themes, and they're being edited by people already using the program that are going in and also adding things like specifically right now, I know there's a thread going on of people sharing songs that they're using to add to the program. So even, people basically building off of what I've already created. So you get like this whole extra place there to share. It's like this fantastic private support group. So that alone, just that group alone, is worth this program. I'm also putting together an upcoming video training series for parents that's basically going to be taking a lot of those common questions that you have about using nature, about homeschooling in general, and I'm going to put all those videos on a site, a member site there where you'll have access to that. I'm having 2 new ebooks as well that are being released in this coming week, and you'll get access to those through purchasing today. So you get Stuck Inside is a book that I'm putting together with indoor activities that you can use, things that you're definitely going to have in your house for when you can't go outside, when you're stuck in there because of rain or snow or heat or whatever. Some go-to activities for you and to preserve your sanity when the kids are stuck inside with you. And then the second one is the Preschooler's Cookbook, which is building again off of that idea that the more children have access to their creation of their food when they're little, those healthy eating habits stay with them. So you get that cookbook with 30 new activities, not the ones in the themes. This is 30 new ones that your child can help create with you for that healthy eating there. And then another bonus that you get, which is an amazing, amazing bonus that I have for a limited time. And this is my good friend Christina. She runs the Hippie Homemaker blog. She is an herbalist by trade, and her son is 5 years old, and she's actually doing a Child's World program with him this year. And she's in our private Facebook group. She's working along with us and using my program. And she and I were talking, and she had this brilliant idea to put together an herbal learning program so that she could teach her son in a kid-friendly way what she's doing with those herbs every day, because that's what she does by trade. And so she's designed this program, and she's given us access to it through the Facebook group there. So you get that for free along with this program when you buy today. So over the next year, she's developing this story, and it's very like a Waldorf style story where it's kind of like a follow your adventure, but well, not really follow your adventure, but it's you follow the adventure. It's a story of 2 siblings, and they're going on a journey to save their grandmother who's sick, and they have to they have to go through the woods and find all of these herbs. And every other week she releases a new section of the story, and it talks about a new herb that these children have found, and she's going to have practical information about the herb and recipes to use it, the story you get, some fun activities, and she's having a local artist that she knows design coloring pages to go in the book for each one of those modules. So it's just a really great bonus that you get there along with the program. So it sounds amazing, right? Lots of people think so already. So how can you get this right now? So once all of the bonuses are released, this will retail through my website for a $149 program. Right now I'm running it at a special price, which you can get through the webinar today for only $89. Now to put that into perspective for you, that's less than $2 a week for a year. And you actually get way more than a year's worth of activities here, and you get access for life. So I just wanted to throw that in for perspective there. You get that, it's less than $2 a year, and you get for only $89. So I'm going to put this link in the chat box for you there. So to purchase right now, you can go to bit.ly/CFB preschool. You can type that in, or you can click the link right there in the chat box. That's how you can access that now. There is one more thing I can share with you today. If you purchase before the end of the webinar only, so you get a fast acting bonus for purchasing right now, you'll also get free instant access to my ebook, What is My Child's Unique Learning Style and How Do I Teach to It? So this is something that I put together. It's a quiz and information about the different types of learning styles. It helps you discover which learning style your child uniquely has, determines how they learn new information best, and therefore how you can teach them best. It helps you identify the methods of teaching and the certain teaching philosophies that best suit your child's needs. And it helps you learn some tips for setting up new learning experiences that are tailored to your child's learning needs. So that is a bonus that you can only get if you order right now before the end of the webinar. That's something that is only a fast acting bonus for this. So you could wait, you could look at it and order later, and you still get that $89 price for a little bit longer. However, this bonus is only good until the end of the webinar. So now I want to do a Q&A. I'm going to spend a few more minutes here doing a Q&A so that you have access and time to get that bonus. So I'm going to go back to that page. I do want to start with you and ask you, what did you learn today? Is the question that I have for you. And then if you have any questions at all that you would like to ask me, now is the time to do that. You can ask me questions about the program or questions about the stuff that we talked about today, and I'm going to do that only through the chat box. I'm not going to do the questions here live so that I have a chance to answer every one of them. The webinar will remain live for about another 5 minutes here, 5 to 10 minutes. I'll remain in here. I'm going to turn off my microphone, but I'll remain here in the chat box to help you answer any questions you might have. Again, that link, it didn't look like that link went up. I'm going to put that link in there again. You can access right away to purchase today and get that fast acting bonus. It's bit.ly/CFB Preschool. Definitely come and join that Facebook group that I mentioned at the beginning. We would love to have you there. And if you have any questions, please throw those in the chat box and we can talk there. And you can definitely come chat with me in the Facebook group as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful morning, evening, whatever time it is where you are. And thanks again. Bye-bye.